Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Black Panther Eyes of Wakanda episodes 1 through 4 video. There were only 4 episodes in the series, but they gave us a new version of Iron Fist, new versions of Black Panther, a whole bunch of history of Wakanda, so there's a bunch of Easter eggs and references here. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. This is just the tip of the iceberg for Black Panther, so you can see they're trying to push into more Black Panther Wakanda lore. Ryan Coogler trying to build out that universe outside of the mainline Black Panther movies, besides just Black Panther 3. Marvel sure seems like it's bringing back a lot of the Defenders. Maybe Ryan Coogler could bring us a Heroes for Hire TV show. The whole thing with this brand new version of Black Panther is that you can tell they wanted to do like a cool alternate future version of Black Panther that wouldn't completely mess with what they're doing with Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars right now, like all the current movies, even Black Panther 3. So a lot of the Black Panther lore that they get into basically weaves in and out, like ducks in and out of the MCU timeline, the sacred timeline, without completely trampling over it or like changing it in really catastrophic ways. I don't believe we ever actually got her real name. We just knew her as the last Panther, the last Black Panther, the final Black Panther from a doomed timeline 500 years in the future of the MCU. The joke there is that it's around the time when Star Trek The Next Generation is happening. So while their future is being destroyed by the Horde, you have to picture the events of Next Generation taking place. I think that some of the writers on the series also wrote on some Star Trek series, so maybe that's them just trying to bake in some Star Trek to their Marvel. And by this point in history, in the 2300s, when that would be taking place, they have developed time travel inside Wakanda, which makes sense. Probably the craziest thing, though, is the way they tie this to the MCU sacred timeline and basically explain that the events of Kilmonger during the first Black Panther movie are so critical to the timeline that had it not gone down the way it was supposed to go down in the live-action movies, then the entire human race would be doomed. So this final Black Panther is basically coming back in time to make sure that Kilmonger gets that vibranium axe at the beginning of the Black Panther movie. That is how important Kilmonger is to the MCU timeline. Like, we make all kinds of references about multiverse Black Panther, Kilmonger coming back during Secret Wars in the live-action movies. They did a lot with that during the What If series, too, where in an alternate timeline, Kilmonger did become Black Panther.
It's more suffering because you stole it. Power unearned can be a very volatile force, cousin.
It's kind of funny to think about how the fandom just wants to see Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger come back in some way and just be a Black Panther, but also it sounds like the writers behind the scenes and the people at Marvel also want to find ways to bring back Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger. If you're not up on the more recent comics, the Horde are like cosmic locusts from the Eternals comics, created by a being called Fulcrum, who's like a higher order cosmic entity based on real-life Jack Kirby. Like, he's called Jack. That's one of his aliases for Jack Kirby. A lot of Jack Kirby references going on right now just because of the Fantastic Four movie. Fulcrum is also supposed to be another aspect of the one above all, the one true God, the capital G God of the Marvel Universe. In the comics, they basically do exactly what you see them do in this episode. They basically just go around consuming stuff, mostly villains for the Celestials. Like, that's how powerful and threatening their race is. So the way they explain it, in this distant future timeline, 500 years in the 2300s, they have come to Earth to consume it. In the comics, they usually just fly around to planets that have celestial eggs inside them because they want those eggs. Sweet, sweet celestial blood eggs. The other real big thing this series did was canonize a new Iron Fist to the lineage of Iron Fist. So obviously, because we're dealing mostly with ancient history here, like all these took place at various points in the distant past, or in the case of this final episode, this last Black Panther, the very distant future. This new Iron Fist was named Jurani. We never actually got a last name for her, but she was alive during the year 1400. That's when the episode takes place, so it's more than 100 years before the events of Wu Aoshi becoming the next Iron Fist. And canonically, she was like the first female Iron Fist that we ever learned about. They used her during the Iron Fist Netflix series, and because all the Netflix series got canonized to the MCU officially recently, like in an official way. I mean, it was technically canon before, but now it's official. That means that Wu Aoshi is also canon to the MCU, so I think the reason why they did Jurani instead of just calling her Wu Aoshi and setting this a couple hundred years later, like in the 1500s, was probably because of the way they used her in the episode. Like, they didn't want to get too deep into the lore, like, we only have 20, 30 minutes to do this episode, so they really didn't push that deeply into Iron Fist mythology. There are a couple references to her saying how she got the power of the Iron Fist, in them dealing with the whole vibranium artifacts subplot during the episode, but that's about it, like very blink and you'll miss it kind of way. So this version of Iron Fist doesn't affect the pre-existing timeline, like it doesn't trample on any of the other versions of Iron Fist, like she's not replacing any of them during this time period.
I am the Iron Fist!
The whole idea in her episode is that the War Dog goes to ancient China searching for a vibranium artifact that's been turned into this special stone dragon that's become sacred to this village in China. He keeps referencing prayers to the dragon's heart. They reference the locals have a dragon curse and a great power protects the area, all part of the Iron Fist mythology and backstory. Where Iron Fist power comes from, the actual heart of the dragon, Xiao having to kill the dragon and take its power, which Jirani later talks about. Like she says, she literally took the power from the molten heart of the dragon, Xiao, the immortal dragon. But if it wasn't clear, they're not trying to tie the Iron Fist mythology and backstory to vibranium in Wakanda. The immortal dragon that she took her power from is a completely different dragon than the stone dragon artifact with the vibranium that they were stealing in the episode. I am sure there are going to be a lot of questions about that. Like, are they just saying that Iron Fist comes from Wakanda? Like, that's where the Iron Fist power comes from? No, that's not what they're saying. Had they had done 10 episodes or like had a couple more episodes to flesh out the Iron Fist backstory, they probably would have explained all that. When it actually comes to Iron Fist stuff in present day, they've been holding off for longer just because Jessica Jones is the first next Defender to come back after the Punisher. Like, there's a lot of Punisher stuff happening right now. I literally just did a Spider-Man Brand New Day video, and they officially confirmed by Kevin Feige that the Punisher, John Bernthal, is coming back during the movie, and he, Spider-Man, and Bruce Banner Hulk will all fight each other until they figure out who the real villain is, which sounds like it's going to be Martin Lee, Mr. Negative. So I'll post a link to that video at the end of this, just because there's so much other stuff going on right now in the MCU, and it's all Spider-Man related. But because there's all this street-level Defender stuff happening in the background of Spider-Man Brand New Day and Daredevil Born Again Season 2, like Daredevil, Punisher, now Jessica Jones stuff, people talking about the other Defender characters like Heroes for Hire, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. What it sounds like Marvel is doing is they're just opting for the simplest path when it comes to doing more Iron Fist down the road, like just wait and see kind of thing, maybe Season 3. I'm not expecting to see him during Daredevil Born Again Season 2. But because all the stuff the actors have been saying and doing the last year or two while they've been working on Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and Season 2, it does sound like they're going to let Finn Jones come back and be Iron Fist in some way, and probably eventually, if not already in Season 3, then Colleen Wing also coming back as her version of Iron Fist as well. That's kind of been Marvel's go-to move the last couple of years since Echo started. It's just like, let it all be canon. Just like, why don't we just say that it all happened inside the MCU instead of trying to come up with some really complicated explainer for how it all works? But it's just taken them a couple of years to actually get to the point where they can work them into the story in a logical kind of way. All that stuff is going to be completely separate from what they're doing in the movies. John Bernthal is kind of a special case. Kevin Feige said they're kind of changing the character a little bit, making him PG-13 is basically what he was trying to say. We're going to tone him down just a little bit, just because Spider-Man Brand New Day will be PG-13. And all the Punisher solo stuff they're doing right now, like the special presentation in Daredevil Born Again, are very, very mature. What they might do with Iron Fist in the next several years, like after we see them do a little bit on Daredevil Born Again and future seasons on TV, is then get into deeper mythology with other versions of Iron Fist. Maybe one after Finn Jones, maybe do ones earlier in the timeline too. Also would just love to see them do a Heroes for Hire TV show at some point, like just real easy slam dunk. When it comes to all the other Eyes of Wakanda episodes, generally these took place mostly in the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, and the final episode was in the 1800s. They started around the ancient Greeks in Crete. The major power outside of Wakanda during this point in history would have been the Greeks. And as we see, Wakandan technology vastly more advanced to the point that it looks almost on par with modern day technology, like they had pagers way back during the time of the ancient Greeks. This episode featured the Lion, played by Cress Williams, who you probably recognize as Black Lightning from the Arrowverse. He's a former member of the Royal Guard that then became one of the war dogs, and when he was sent abroad, just eventually rebelled and decided to create an empire for himself using Wakandan technology. So that basically sets off the whole plot of the series, with Noni being a disgraced member of the Dora Milaje sent to the war dogs to take him down, bring him back dead or alive. Their group are basically the Hatut Zeraze in the comics. They reference that name on the show, but they call them the War Dogs, I think, just to make it easier for kids that are actually watching the series. Because it's meant to be an animated series, they expect younger viewers to watch it. The Hatut Zeraze in the comics are more like the Wakandan secret police. They've been featured a couple times in the background of the live-action Black Panther movies, like Nakia was working with the War Dogs during the events of the first Black Panther movie at the beginning when he ran into her with that group that she was trying to infiltrate. This whole final episode of the series even canonized that moment at the beginning of the Black Panther movie with the vibranium artifact that was on loan to that museum that was being watched by the other Wakandan that Kilmonger had gotten to turn for him. That person who had joined him was another former war dog. Episode 2, Legends and Lies, was all about the Trojan War, which is funny because there's a lot of MCU actors who are in the Christopher Nolan version of The Odyssey, and The Odyssey is basically like the sequel story to the Trojan War.
Odysseus, your machine has reached the city walls.
We even see Odysseus show up in this episode. He's going to be played by Matt Damon in the upcoming movie. Tom Holland, because we're doing Spider-Man stuff right now, Spider-Man Brand New Day started filming, Tom Holland is playing his son during that movie, and John Bernthal, Mr. Punisher himself, is also playing another critical character. So there's like a lot of reunions happening with those characters in that movie and then in Spider-Man Brand New Day. You could just picture them on the set of that Christopher Nolan movie talking about how they all just signed deals to do a new Spider-Man movie together. See you in a couple weeks when we're filming that brand new Spider-Man movie. This episode, though, basically deals with the true history in the MCU of the Trojan War, like what happened in the MCU during this period, where all the lies in the title comes from. Basically, one of their war dogs trying to get a Wakandan artifact back from Helen of Troy, and him becoming a good friend of Achilles, then being forced to kill him during the episode. So a lot of it is this alternate history for what really happened during the Trojan War. If you look at the prequel during that first Black Panther movie, it would make sense that Wakanda got loosely involved in a lot of world affairs, but on a very, very DL kind of level. Like they wanted to keep it very quiet until the events of that first Black Panther movie, when they sort of joined the world stage in a much bigger way because of what T'Challa did. That was basically the whole plot of that last episode, like Wakanda eventually joining the world stage hand in hand with T'Challa. And it's all thanks to Kilmonger with that vibranium axe. There are a couple other funny references during this episode, too. They reference the Greek gods often because these are the Greeks. They're on the other side of the Trojan War, so they curse or they get blessings from the Greek gods. But because of the events of Thor, Love, and Thunder, we've actually learned that those Greek gods are actual real characters that exist in the MCU. Like Zeus, Hades, Hercules, they all exist. They all live in Omnipotent City. All probably casually watching everything that's going on here during the Trojan War, just having a drink over it. There are a couple other cool bits of advanced Wakandan technology that he has here during the 1200s, too. Remember, this is the 1200s when this is going on. So he has a hypo spray of vibranium tech that he uses to close his wounds. Then even though I've already explained all the Iron Fist episode, basically, a lot of the artifacts that you see inside their vault, basically like their version of Odin's treasure vault, are ones that you actually saw them trying to recover in the other episodes of the series. There are a couple other cool things that you actually see them try during this episode too, like what would happen if Iron Fist used their power against vibranium, and it's a bit like Thor's hammer versus Captain America's shield. And if you're wondering, the character in the fourth episode, the Prince Tafari in the late 1800s, would be kind of like T'Challa's great-grand uncle. Part of the idea in that episode, though, is that he helped save the human race. So, like, his whole thing at the beginning of the episode was he wanted to create a legend for himself. But by the end of the episode, he's like, no, I understand. We can't tell anybody about this ever. We saved the entire planet, and we can't tell anybody about it. So nobody in the royal family in the future, like T'Challa, his father, his grandfather, T'Challa, nobody grew up ever knowing what they did back in the 1800s here, saving the future of the human race. The only problem with the episode here, one of the critical errors, is the way they explain how time travel works during the series, but I think the way they actually end the episode sort of fixes this mistake, so it might have just been this final Black Panther character trying to say anything that she could to get them to help her.
My timeline will realign with this one.
Because the whole way that time travel works inside the MCU, this is canonized during Avengers Endgame, is that you can't change your own past. You can only create branch timelines when you mess with stuff in the past. So what would happen is if they put the axe back and they fix, quote unquote, the timeline so that it happens the way it was supposed to during the first Black Panther movie and Killmonger gets that axe, when she goes back to the future, her future will be the exact same as when she left it, but she will be creating another branch timeline that will look more like the sacred timeline, like the way things are supposed to happen inside the MCU. If she wanted to go back to a future that was nicer, she would have to jump to a different branch timeline that was completely different. Her future with the Horde would still be completely foobarred. They also kind of made it seem like at the end of her episode, she sort of winks out like everything turns white. I think that's meant to show that her timeline was technically being erased, which also isn't super accurate. Technically, it would still continue to exist. But it'd be kind of like the end of Loki season 1 where you see millions of, infinite different possibilities, different timelines, and just one of them would be the sacred timeline that these characters are on because they put the axe back. This is part of the reason why you don't see them really dig into the mechanics of time travel. There are a lot of cool videos out there of Christopher Nolan trying to explain time travel, and it gets really, really complicated, even though it is cool to watch him explain time travel. You just picture Kevin Feige talking to the writers of this series and be like, no, this is a series for kids. We don't need to dig into the weeds on time travel and how that all works. There was even a lot of hand-waving during Avengers Endgame, especially with a lot of these real big movies. When it comes to the Black Panther stuff, I'm not expecting a ton of TV shows. There was an Okoye show that they canceled. There was a bunch of other stuff that got backburnered. So I just think their priority right now for Black Panther lore is the movies. But if there's any other Easter eggs or references or things you spotted during the series that you have questions about, just write them below in the comments, or about this new Iron Fist or this new version of Black Panther they introduced. I've already done a bunch of Black Panther 3 videos, so I'll also link those at the end of this. But everybody click here for that brand new Spider-Man Brand New Day teaser. A lot of Spider-Man stuff happening this weekend, and click here for all those Black Panther 3 videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.